Okay, just think about this for a second. Everything, everything around you, your phone, this sound, the planet itself, it's all changing constantly. Nothing just stays. And that core idea, impermanence, well, that's what we're really getting into today.
That's right. Yeah, we're looking at parts of impermanence and release. It's a discourse the Buddha gave to his monks back in Veluvana.
Right. It's an English translation of Buddha's discourses. It's translated by Venerable Kirbathgoda Nanananda Thero. Our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to explore that teaching. How does understanding impermanence actually work for you? We want to go beyond just nodding along, yeah, things change, and really dig into why that understanding is so important.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the Buddha's really powerful statement on it, then look at these amazing pictures he paints of cosmic change.
They are quite something.
And then tie it all back to personal liberation with a story of this teacher, Sunetta. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let's jump in.
Okay, so that foundational statement, what's the core of it?
Well, the essence, and it comes up again and again in the text, is this. Monks, conditioned things are impermanent. Monks, conditioned things are unstable. Monks, conditioned things are without solace.
Okay.
And then the conclusion. Monks, it is enough to become dispassionate towards all conditioned things, enough to become detached, enough to become liberated.
That repetition really lands it, doesn't it? Like he's saying, listen, this is really important.
Exactly. It emphasizes how fundamental this is.
He keeps saying conditioned things. Let's unpack that a bit. What does that cover?
Right. So conditioned things means, well, basically everything that comes into being because of other factors, causes and conditions.
Right.
Think about a cloud. It needs water vapor, certain temperatures, dust particles, right? When those conditions change, the cloud changes or it just vanishes. So conditioned things are like that. Our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies.
The whole universe, really.
The whole universe. Everything arises because of causes. And because those causes are always shifting, everything is temporary. It rises, it stays for a bit, and it passes away.
So trying to find permanent happiness in them is flawed.
It's inherently frustrating, yeah. Because they will change or disappear. That's their nature. Clinging just sets you up for suffering when the inevitable happens.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And then the text just explodes this idea onto this huge cosmic scale, these illustrations.
Yeah.
Let's start with the no rain scenario.
Yeah, it's quite stark. He talks about these vast periods, hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years with absolutely no rain.
Wow.
And the result, all vegetation just dries up, completely gone. Seeds, plants, trees, everything just withers and dies and it doesn't come back. It paints a picture of total desolation.
It really underscores that even something we rely on, like rain, isn't guaranteed forever. But then it gets even more, well, dramatic, the multiple suns.
This is where it really builds. It's like a step-by-step breakdown of the world. So a second sun appears. And what happens? All the little streams and ponds just dry up, vanish.
Just like that.
Yep. Then a third sun comes along. Now it's the major rivers, the Ganga, the Yamuna, these huge, famous rivers they dry up to, gone.
That's already hard to picture. And the fourth sun.
The fourth sun goes for the sources. The Great Lakes, like Lake Anavatapta, the places these massive rivers come from, they get completely parched, dried out.
Unbelievable, these vast water bodies.
Yeah.
Just gone. And it keeps going. The fifth sun.
It does. With the fifth sun, the focus shifts to the great ocean itself. It starts receding, pulling back by these immense distances. The text uses yohanas, which is a huge ancient measure, just to give you the scale.
Right.
Then it shrinks further, down to the height of palm trees, then maybe waist deep, then ankle deep.
Oh, man.
Until finally, there's not even enough water left in the entire ocean basin to wet the tip of your finger.
The whole ocean. That really forces you to reconsider what permanent could possibly mean.
Absolutely, but it's not over.
There's more. The sixth and seventh suns, that's where it gets really fiery.
Exactly. The sixth sun heats things up intensely. The Earth itself and this huge cosmic mountain, Mount Sinnaru, they start to smoke. Like a potter's kiln firing up is the image used.
Okay, so intense heat.
And then the seventh sun appears, and everything just ignites. The Earth, Mount Sinnaru, it all becomes one single massive blaze.
A global firestorm.
Pretty much. The flames, it says, reach all the way up to the Brahma realms, these high heavenly plains. Mountains that were hundreds of yojanas high are just incinerated.
Wow.
And the most striking part, no ash or soot is left behind. It's like when you burn ghee or oil, it just burns away completely. Nothing remains.
And it's staggering. The sheer scale, the finality, it drives home that initial point about impermanence, doesn't it? Even mountains, oceans, Nothing escapes.
Nothing conditioned escapes. That's the point. And the text then poses this question, who else, besides those with real spiritual insight, could even believe this is possible?
Right. It suggests this isn't just common knowledge. It takes a certain depth of understanding to really grasp it.
It really does. It highlights how radical the Buddha's insight into impermanence actually was and still is.
And to show what happens when you don't fully grasp this or may grasp something else instead, we get the story of Sunetta. Who was he?
So Sunetta was this teacher from the past, apparently very advanced, free from sensual desires, had hundreds of disciples.
Okay.
And his main teaching, it seems, was guiding his followers on how to get reborn in the Brahma realm. Those higher heavenly states we mentioned?
Through certain practices, presumably.
Right. Through the practices he taught.
Yeah, and his students had different outcomes.
Yeah, the text says those who really got his teaching, they achieved that goal rebirth in the Brahma world.
Right.
Others, maybe with partial understanding, were reborn in other heavens or even as humans in, powerful or wealthy families. Good results, but still within the cycle.
But Sunetta himself, he had a thought about his own path.
He did. He kind of reflected and thought, well, it's not really fitting for me, the teacher, to end up on the exact same level as my students.
Ah, okay. So he aimed higher for himself.
He decided to cultivate something further. He focused intensely on developing loving kindness, metta, for 7 whole years.
7 years of metta practice. What did that lead to?
It led to some pretty extraordinary results, according to the discourse. For 7 whole eons of the world contracting and expanding these immense timescales,
You're right.
he wasn't reborn in the human world at all.
Yeah.
When the world system ended, like in that fiery destruction scenario, he was reborn way up in the Abhasara Brahma realm, a very high luminous realm.
Wow.
And then when the world system reforms, he was reborn as Brahma himself, the great Brahma, ruling over an empty, newly formed Brahma palace.
So very high state.
Extremely high.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop there. He went on to be Brahma for ages. Then he was reborn as Indra, the king of the gods, 36 times.
36 times.
Yeah. And then, even as a human, he was reborn multiple times as a great wheel-turning monarch, this ideal, righteous king who rules the whole world justly.
The one with the 7 treasures.
That's the one. The wheel, the elephant, horse, jewel, woman, householder, and the counselor, plus over 1,000 heroic sons. Immense power, virtue, long life.
Okay, so this sounds like incredible success. Long lives, high status, power. Sunetta really achieved a lot.
He absolutely did within the confines of conditioned existence.
But there's the catch, isn't there?
Despite all of it, the incredibly long lifespans, the heavenly realms, the earthly power, the text makes it clear. Sunetta did not escape the fundamental cycle.
She still experienced.
Birth, aging, death, and the associated suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair. Even as Brahma, even as Indra, even as this great king, he was still subject to the underlying unsatisfactoriness of conditioned life.
So why? Why didn't all that achievement lead to liberation? The text gives a reason, right?
It does. It's very specific. It says it was because of his non-comprehension and non-penetration of 4 particular things. Noble virtue, sila, noble concentration, samadhi, noble wisdom, panyanya, and noble liberation, vimutti.
The core elements of the Buddhist path, essentially.
Exactly, those 4 noble attainments. Sunetta had great merit, great meditative states perhaps, certainly great kindness, but he hadn't fully understood and realized these 4 aspects which lead to cutting off the root of suffering and rebirth altogether.
Which makes the contrast with the Buddha himself crystal clear.
Perfectly. Because right after explaining Sunetta's situation, the Buddha declares his own attainment.
What did he say?
He says that he has fully comprehended and penetrated those same 4 noble attainments: virtue, concentration, wisdom, and liberation.
Oh.
And because of that, he says, the craving for existence has been destroyed, the conduit leading to further becoming is ended, and for him, there is no more rebirth.
That's it. That's nirvana, the final goal.
That's the final goal, complete liberation from the entire cycle that Sunetta, despite his long journey, was still caught in.
And the verses at the end sort of summarize this achievement.
Yes, they beautifully recap his realization of virtue, concentration, wisdom, and this unsurpassed liberation. They portray him as the seeing one, the one who has ended suffering and attains the ultimate peace of final nirvana.
It's a powerful conclusion. Okay, so let's bring this back home. For you listening, what are the big takeaways from exploring this teaching on impermanence and Sunetta's story?
Well, I think the first thing is connecting that huge cosmic impermanence back to your own life.
Right. It's not just about stars and galaxies.
Exactly. It's about seeing the same principle at play in your relationships, your job, your health, your moods. Everything is constantly shifting. And really seeing that, internalizing it, can start to loosen that tight grip of attachment, the clinging that causes so much pain when things inevitably change.
Because change is inevitable.
It's the fundamental nature of conditioned things. And the contrast between Sunnetta and the Buddha is crucial here.
How so?
It shows that, while even amazing achievements, long life, heavenly rebirths, they're still temporary. They don't solve the fundamental problem.
They're still impermanent.
They're still impermanent and ultimately unsatisfactory. True, lasting release comes from something else. It comes from developing those 4 things Sunnetta missed: virtue, concentration, wisdom,
And liberation.
and liberation. That's the path beyond just experiencing change towards freedom from the suffering associated with it.
So it's a really vital reminder that worldly success, even on a cosmic scale, isn't the final answer if you're seeking lasting peace. The path lies inward in cultivating these qualities.
Precisely.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, the core message seems pretty clear. Everything that arises from conditions is, by its very nature, impermanent. It's unstable. It can't offer ultimate lasting solace.
Right. And seeing that clearly isn't meant to be depressing. It's actually presented as the key, the foundation for letting go.
For detachment.
For non-clinging, and ultimately for liberation. It's about facing reality as it is, without trying to pretend things are permanent when they just aren't.
So maybe a final thought for you to carry away from this. Just take a little time to reflect on the things in your own life that you cling to the tightest. Maybe it's possessions, maybe relationships, maybe even ideas about who you are. And just ask yourself, how might a deeper gut-level understanding of their impermanence shift how you relate to them?
Yeah.
Could acknowledging that change is inherent actually bring more peace, less fear? And perhaps how could exploring those 4 attainments, virtue, concentration, wisdom, liberation, be your path towards navigating this impermanent world with greater freedom?
That's definitely something worth reflecting on long after our conversation ends.